All right, am I ready, Andrew?
Yep.
All right, so I'm going to call the Neary Building Committee Finance Subcommittee meeting to order on November 14th at 1:32 p.m. I'm going to go pretty fast because it has a short window here, so I want to get through this because I can tell you I'm actually confused about these invoices. Okay, let's do the minutes first from November 11th. I sent out a revised version on Tuesday. So hopefully you guys got that, that cut out some of the, what I thought was a little verbose language. So did everybody get that one?
The one you just sent looked good to me.
Yeah, and that's the same one I sent Tuesday, Andrew, and I didn't realize it. I was bad email. So I did send the right one to you Tuesday. So Mark, have you had a chance to look at those?
I'm all good.
All right.
All right, Andrew,
I move to approve the October 11th minutes as sent.
Mark,
Isn't a September 11th?
September 11th, yeah.
Okay.
September 11th.
What did you,
I said October.
yeah, September 11th, 2024. So,
Kathy, you said November 11th. Eric said October, so we're at September. I second it.
okay, September 11th to be clear. All right, we've got a motion, we've got a second, all in, roll call vote. Andrew,
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Is I, so 3-0, I will get those submitted because they're late. Okay, where's Mr. Burrows? There he is. All right, so now let's just jump into the invoices. Let's see what we're gonna do here besides talk about the CMR versus the BDB. Okay, we've got two sets of invoices. Let's start with the September invoices. The first thing is I've already approved that little bit, the 199.75, 2x16, they were anxious to get paid. Jason wanted that one done. So I approved that one because that's within the limits of any one person doing. So that one's out of the way, assuming no one has an issue with that. Everybody okay with that one?
Fine.
Yeah, Mark?
I'm good.
Okay. Now, Errol Street's base invoice that is based on fixed fee 49.20 looks fine to me. But then if you look at their invoice, they've got two amounts listed there, 15.10 and 12.70. And Jim, on your summary, the 12.70 is not listed. So are we to approve the 12.70 or is there something wrong with it?
1 second, because I thought,
Well, it's one invoice for 17,700. Right?
Yeah, so their one invoice that includes three components. Their normal fee based on the fixed cost. Then you've got the 15.10 from,
okay. So sorry, Kathy, I didn't pick this up when you sent this. We sent an updated one because we had, I think we only listed the 11.20. We didn't list both of them. So we sent.
Listed the 15.10, Jim. So are we supposed to do 15.10 and?
Yes.
I think we're supposed to do the 1770, right?
Yeah. So
Hold on. We've already, the $10,000 has already been paid by the town accountant. That was paid by ARPA, so we don't do the 10,000 again. That's not something for us to approve. ARPA, that's ARPA money. We knew that was doing, so that's outside our purview. So that's all paid. So let's back that out. Okay.
But should we have clean invoices then? Like there should be a separate invoice for 10,000 that Carla pays, as opposed to paying one invoice with two funding sources.
And there is, so if you look back, there is a separate invoice for $10,000. That is a separate invoice from the provider, Lahef Geotechnical. So there is a separate invoice there. However, Errol Street does pick it up on their invoice also. So Errol Street needs to get it off.
Okay. Yeah. So we sent an updated one that includes the 15.10 and the 12.70. So both those do have to be paid. So the three invoices should total out to 7,700. Yeah, so we sent that out, I think it was November 1st.
Kathy,
So sorry.
I do have that invoice, Kathy, that where the 10,000 is crossed off and they've modified it.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
All right, so I guess what I've got is old. Then if you look at the peer consultants invoice that has the 12.70 on it, why do they say invoice totals 13,950? It's for, I mean, this is like a cumulative invoice for, I guess, work that's already been paid for.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. So those work that's already been in place. Let me just,
Because that's a strange looking invoice. They go, it's per the 8/4/2023 proposal, the 8/5/2023 proposal, yet they say this is billing from April 1st of 24 through June 30th of 24. So I assume that we really do only owe the 1270, that the other piece of it has been paid.
correct. Yep.
Look,
I can get some clarification and clean that up from Arrow Street just for the record. But yeah, the 1270 is what we owe them.
yeah, so you should make sure that since we paid Arrow Street for the other pieces of it, that Arrow Street paid them because they still say the invoice is 13,950. Okay. All right. So I think we've got it straight what to do on this one. So we need to approve the 4920, the 1510, and the 1270. Agree, Jim? For
Well,
Arrow.
Well, I think we just need to approve. It's the same invoice. Well, Becky, do you have an invoice that's for the 7,700, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Do you have an invoice number for that one?
It's the same invoice number, the 729,782.
Oh.
It's just, they've crossed off
Okay,
and somebody
the
typed it.
total 7,700 on that one.
Yes.
All right, so I move that we approve invoice number 729,782 in the amount of $7,700.
Second,
Hey, Andrew. Roll call vote,
Oh,
Andrew.
aye.
Sorry, Mark.
aye.
And Cook is aye. So that is a positive vote. So Becky, can you get these out pretty quickly? Because these are starting to be a little bit old.
I know, we just did warrants and had the school committee sign off on them, but I think I'm gonna do a special warrant so we can get these done.
All right, next is the more recent set of invoices, which are actually current. So here we've got the same 4920. Now, I'm confused. Why are we paying another 3,200 for the soil testing when I thought it was $10,000?
This is this is for separate services outside of that. Let me just scroll down to it. Yeah, so this was part of the original borings. This is totally separate from the original those borings that we had them do close to the building.
So this is for the perk test too.
Okay, so if you look on the Arrow Street detail that shows their basic services, a specialty, where is the 3,200? I mean, they show 10,000 bucks.
3,200 is on the Green International.
Yeah, I see that, but look on the one I'm talking about. Where does it fit? They've got geotechnical borings and desktop at 10,000 bucks on this. So where is it? What category is it going in?
Are you looking at which invoice are you
All right,
looking
never
at?
mind. I see. Okay, I see it at the bottom. Oh, so it's at the very bottom. So they just got soil down there too. Okay,
Mhm.
so that's the perk test.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Okay. Yeah, there it is. Sorry, I'm blind. All right. Andrew, Mark, you okay with this one?
Yep.
Yep.
And then Hanska is now billing us again. So they've given us credit for Mary Ann's work as the original agreement. So we're back. They're back in the black with us. So they've got a net invoice to be approved that takes the credit for her and then still leaves them being owed 2,600 bucks.
Yep.
Okay, and
I approve the Arrow Street invoice 729,819 in the amount of $8,120.
Second,
roll call vote, Andrew,
Aye.
Mark.
aye.
Aye, so that was approved. Next.
I move that we approve invoice number, and Jim, you guys need shorter invoices numbers. 1323833-1554-11 in the amount of $2,600.
The joys of a large corporation. Sorry.
Exactly right, exactly right. Mark, can you
Second.
second? Okay, roll call vote, Andrew.
Aye.
Mark,
Aye.
Cook is aye. Okay, so that should, unless Becky or Jim disagree, catch us up on all invoices through the end of October.
It looks like, Jim, we're still good on budget, right?
Correct. Yep. Yeah, we haven't had any new committed costs. So we have a balance remaining of committed costs of $22,317. So
Not much, but I guess it's something, right?
Yep.
Kathy, are we tracking the ARPA funds in here too? Should we?
Well, Carla is actually, and maybe Becky too, they're certainly going to, it's going to be part of the overall cost in the end. So Jim, it probably wouldn't hurt if Don messed you up to put that 10,000 in here because it really is an additional cost. So if we think we've only spent 950 less to 2317, we really haven't. We spent 950 plus 10,000 less 2317. So it wouldn't hurt to get it on here someplace unless it messes you up.
The only thing is with the MSBA, now what this budget update report, we don't necessarily share with MSBA. We have our ProPay system, which is separate. So it can be listed on there. We just have to be careful with that with the MSBA is all.
Okay. So you know better than us how the MSBA wants to see things, but in the end,
Yep.
we make sure that 10,000 is in the total cost because
Yeah.
it is a cost, regardless of how it goes. Okay, next thing is, to me, the big thing on the table right now, and I assume we're going to vote officially on it next week, is the type of contract. Okay, so Jim, once again, I've read everything I can read. I don't know, I've got an opinion. I'm still not totally clear, and I don't know that you really can come up with a perfect answer without knowing how the project turns out, right? At the end of the day, you probably know which way you should have gone. Why don't you just refresh us again as to why you think the CMR is the preference as far as this project goes? So make your case, and then let's let Andrew and Mark ask questions as far as anything else they want to know before we hopefully take a position.
Yeah. I think just to put it simply, the size, scale, and complexity of the project, of a $100 million project that we're going into, to have a CM on board prior to it going out to bid, doing pre-construction, constructability services, going over our budget, having a third estimate going through that process, I think is going to be absolutely crucial. And the level of expertise that they have for how this building is going to come together also goes into schedule. Schedule is going to be crucial on this, because, and I go back to what the school committee said, we have students in a temporary condition that that the school committee does not want to see them go over the 2 years for. So to have a CM on board, going through the planning stages, going through the construction stages, will make for a much better schedule analysis and schedule, basically carrying the schedule through the project. And that's for a couple different reasons. It's the level of expertise, the pre-planning, and also in the CM model, we can work through, because they'll have allowances, they'll have holds. If we come across something that's not in the drawings in the design bid world, we have to issue them a change order before they proceed. So that also has schedule implications as well. So there's the schedule piece of it, and then the budget piece of it. Obviously, budget is critical, and I do think having a clear understanding of where we are with the budget, going into the GMP, going into the bid, is going to be very important. Because with the design bid build, the cost is less, but they're bidding what's on the drawings. The CM during the pre-construction phase is going to be filling in some of those gaps, helping with the design, and then when it goes out to bid, they're able to fill in those gaps with the allowances. So again, I think because of how critical the schedule is, because of how critical the budget is, while it looks like you're paying up front, you're really buying in an insurance of what that GMP price is the actual cost of the project. The line of sight to all of that it's open book accounting with the CM. All those costs that go in there get reviewed by us and ultimately this group. So we also have line of sight for what they're putting in these budgets. When we get to the bid if it's the design build bid world, we won't have line of sight to that. We won't be able to negotiate what they're carrying in their costs. Are they carrying too much for winter conditions? Are they carrying too much for temp fences for, where we'll be able to drill into that stuff and really understand what they're carrying and is it necessary? So overall, again, budget and schedule. And I think just the expertise and level of professionalism and that's not to say that design build bid world doesn't have that. I think this project definitely lends itself to a much higher level of professionalism and pre-planning than if it were, say a $30 million DPW building. That was a fairly straightforward design. So yeah, I think last meeting I was trying to let the group see where people were leaning. I think next week I'll definitely be, speaking more like this, that I do think the CM at risk is the correct way to go for schedule and budget.
Okay, let me just ask a couple of factual questions before we really discuss this. Okay, so the construction manager gets hired at what point?
So right after the vote, we would start the ball rolling with the getting the RFP out, RFQ out, and then prior to at the very early stages of design development, which is that first phase of detailed design.
After the town vote?
Correct. Yep.
Okay. So after the town has approved the project with both of the votes, then if it's a positive response, positive vote, then we would immediately do the RFQ to solicit bids for the CMR.
Correct. Yep.
Okay. All right. Then obviously you pay the CMR for the services they provide for the next year or so to generate the construction documents, correct?
Yes. So we would agree on, at that time, you agree on a fee. And the fee is carried throughout the project. You're not paying the fee up front. It's basically, incremental payments. You would agree on their GC cost. And again, that is not paid in a lump sum. You're just agreeing to that number. And then they would have a pre-construction fee. And so and again, you'd pay, that would be basically what they would rec for every month, billing against that pre-construction fee.
But they could be the GC, but they aren't obligated. It's not necessarily a fact that they would be the GC.
Correct. Until you sign the GMP with them, which is the final contract. If things went poorly, you could switch them out.
Okay, so you got the year, you signed the contract with the CMR, you go the year, he works with the architect, he starts scrubbing things, we get a better budget, so he fills in some of the blanks, right? So the budget starts looking better than it would with the DBB method, right? So we go a year or so with the CMR being hired, right?
Yep.
Okay, at the end of the year, we don't like the CMR, we really regret hiring that CMR, we aren't stuck hiring that CMR to actually be the general contractor.
While not ideal, yes. Yep. Until you sign the GMP, the GMP is the contract to direct them to proceed with the actual construction.
Okay.
Until then, you have agreed to what their fee will be if the GMP is signed and what their pre-construction fee is.
Okay, so you would agree up front what their pre-construction fee is, which is that fee for the year that they're going to be working with Katie and Larry, right?
Correct. Yep.
So they get a fee for that. Then you also agree up front what their GMP fee is going to be if they get the contract to build it.
Yes. Yep.
Okay. And the desire is to hopefully have the same company all the way through. That's what you want to have. You don't want to change horses with the actual construction unless there's something that warrants it. You would prefer to have the same construction manager GC all the way through?
100%. Yeah. Because by the time you get to implementation of the project, that level of base knowledge is there to proceed right in. So yeah, I've never been on a project that hasn't proceeded with the CM.
So the CM thinks they're here with us all the way through. That's what they going into thinking that. Okay, so when you get to the point you've got the construction documents done and you're ready to go out for the bid like you would for the DBB, Are you saying you don't go out for the same bid with the CMR, that the CMR, if you like the CMR, you just go for the CMR, or do you still have to including this coming back with a bid?
So with sorry, you broke up just a little bit there. Are you speaking about the subcontractors or the CM?
I'm used to the DBB. That's how we did the public safety, right? So we just went out, we had all these bids, right? And we were obligated to pick the lowest bid. And of course, they put the bid together based on all the subs that came in, right? So is that process different when the construction documents are done, so that you still put it out to bid to a lot of people, including the construction manager, and so that he comes back with one of many bids?
No, so your CM, so the filed sub trades, you still have to follow that process. That you do pre-qualify subcontractors, so that's another benefit, that you have the CM on board for input on all those filed sub trades. Those filed sub trades, we go through that process, the qualification, and then we go to the bidding. Except those trades get rolled into the CM's GMP. However, the step that's not required, because it's 149A, not 149, is that the CM understands which subcontractors are going to be brought on, because they're a part of that process. It's not like 149 where you select your GC and your subs and then just put them together. Your CM contract is maintained throughout that process.
So the CM, if you want the CM to continue to build the project, and the CM wants to build the project, then there's no more competition for the GC at that point. You basically picked the GC up front when you hired the CM, right?
Correct. Yep. And that's the upfront discussion of their fee and of their GCs that we go through to make sure that that price is competitive when it's submitted.
Okay, so the fee you paid him up front, the pre-construction fee you paid him, agreed to, is a additional cost compared to the DBD, but you're hoping you're going to have a better estimate. You're going to hope and he's going to find ways to save some money that wouldn't have been found otherwise, that he makes it more efficient, et cetera, right? So the end, you're hoping you actually save money, not cost money, by going this route.
Correct. Yep.
Okay.
That's and I think the other key piece that I didn't mention is everything that's built into the GMP. If we don't spend it, it comes back. I know we said that quite a bit, but that's a very important point, that and that's part of our job, is throughout that process, making sure that every dollar that's included in the GMP is required. And then throughout the process, we'll have, weekly meetings with them on where their budget lines stand, to make sure that we're maximizing each one of those budget lines, and that wherever the money's going, it is required. So any allowance, any contingency comes to us for review. So if it's an example, they make a mistake and something gets broken, but it's actually their fault, and they try and submit a drawdown from an allowance to us, we're going to push back and say, no, that's on your dime. That should not come out of an allowance, just as an example for that. So I think that's another key piece, that, we have that control over the budget as we go.
Isn't the contract in essence a cost plus contract with the GMP? Isn't that what we end up with the CMR?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
There's some, small differences, but essentially, yes.
Okay, I'm going to be quiet now. So Andrew.
I mean, I think I like the CMR, and conceptually it makes perfect sense. Have the person in the kitchen with you while you're doing the recipe. I just don't understand why it costs more. I mean, I understand you're paying for the pre-construction, but you should be, the GMP pricing should be, in the end, the same, if not lower than a bid. Because you have the more pieces in there, and they know what they're getting into, and they're kind of part of the pre-construction and efficiency gains and all that stuff. But I just don't understand why it's more expensive, unless it's more expensive, but we're anticipating that we're going to get all that increase back. It just, besides the having the guy or the company there during the pre-construction. But I can't imagine that's an additional 5% of the cost. That would be ridiculous.
You're talking about the estimates, why we didn't understand why the CMR version was so much more than the
I
DBB.
could get it being a little bit
Yeah.
more because you're having them in earlier and you're paying for labor, to be part of that planning process. But if that's 5% of the total project, I mean, that's whatever it would be, $10 million when, Arrow Street's 900,000 or whatever it is, like for like 2 years worth of work, like it just seems crazy.
So
I
the,
I agree.
ahead.
I don't think you explained that very well, Jim. Why when he did the estimates the last time, why there was this, much higher number for the CMR, when in the end, we're hoping we're going to save money, not cost money by doing this. We're hoping overall it's going to be less expensive using the CMR.
So there's a couple things. So the general conditions, that's the staffing of the project, is usually about 1% more. So that is because it's not a low bid world, they're going to supply the staff that's required to run the job. They don't have to be as lean with that. And again, in turn, the benefit to the district, to the client, is that oversight is another insurance policy, that there's a lot more oversight on the project. So there's, you're limiting how many issues you have on the project, where they're not having to go in as lean as possible with their staffing. So you can call that about 1%. The general requirements, which is site safety, site logistics, all of those pieces and parts, is about 2% of that. So that is, again, a more robust plan up front, that they're building money into that, in order, and again, not having to be lean because it's not just low bid. They're able to really work through that and make sure that they have everything they need from a logistical standpoint and a site safety standpoint. And both a GC and a CM have to carry those costs, but they're able to include a more robust plan in order for the project delivery to be smoother. So the other piece is that we're carrying a GMP contingency. So that's another contingency within the contract that we're carrying. So that's another, call it 2%, that covers anything that has not been flushed out during the design period, that they are able to use, that doesn't have to hit our construction contingency. And there's
But we
a
should
very
have a lower construction contingency because we're doing so much pre-planning.
So as we go into that to finalize the GMP, we can start to look at what we're carrying for. Currently, I think we're at 2.5%, which on CM projects is about where I think we should be. We can talk about, maybe we make a small adjustment there. But if you're lowering your construction contingency outside of the GMP, you're just opening up a little bit more risk. And that's definitely a balance. That's a valid point.
What I'm trying to say is we have the same contingencies for, bid versus CMR in the plan, right? And now we're adding 2% on top for GMP, when the whole purpose of GMP is that you shouldn't have any change orders that you would have with your bid, which is where you need your contingencies.
Yeah. So to a very important clarifying point, if we were to go design bid build, we would have the discussion about increasing our construction contingency.
Okay,
Right.
so that I think is an
Yeah.
important, when we look at this, right, we should have two separate costs, right? Or two
Yep.
separate plan, one in CMR where we raise our contingencies because we're, doing a bid and we might have change orders, versus a GMP. So really there is no difference in the costs, or it'd be very close. You're basically, as I was trying to get at, the only incremental difference is the fact that you're bringing people on earlier and you're paying for that additional labor in the planning process.
Yeah. And it's the upfront costs as well, because you're also filling in potential risk, potential gaps in the drawings with allowances and holds. So as we go through this process, if it's known scope that may not be defined, but the CM says, we may want to cover ourselves with an allowance for this piece of scope, we carry that within the GMP.
But again, would that be in that GMP 2%? Or is that additional on top?
So that would be additional on top of that.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense to me. You have a contingency that if something is a change order, then you're gonna have an allowance because you don't know if you have a contingency, and then you're gonna have a contingency on top of the contingency for the contingency. On a process in which it's supposed to be nailed down early because they're in the planning process.
There's always going to be some risk. Now, the percentage of GMP contingency will fluctuate as we go through the process. So at DD, they may start at 12% as we go through the process of what they're carrying and work through constructability, work through their comfort level with the drawings, that will come down. So it's not a set contingency, like for the construction contingency, we're saying we really need to carry 2.5%. And, that cost is going to, fluctuate. The GMP contingency, we work with the CM to find what that right percentage is.
All right, Becky, you had something?
Yeah, I think Jim already addressed this, but I had attended the Office of Inspector General offered a training on the CM at risk. So I participated in that, and they did say that there can be change orders on this. There can be that you find after the fact that it's not, while it's a guaranteed maximum price, it's really not guaranteed. It does require I think an elaborate approval process in order to make that change, but it is always a possibility that we could have those contingencies that we need to use. The other thing they said, Jim, is that the earlier that we involve them in the project, the better in terms of the design. Is this, or I guess after town meeting, is that still early enough to involve them in this project?
Yes, yeah, definitely. So leading up to the town vote, we would have everything in place to really get that process rolling. I know in all of my other projects, that's the stage that we brought them in on. I've seen it where you bring them on during schematic design. In my opinion, it's not money well spent because the design really isn't defined. You're working through the design. So while they can have some input, it's not as beneficial as when you're going through the detailed design that they're actually going to be building. Not to say that schematic design isn't what they're going to be building, but I think you get more bang for your buck if it's during detailed design.
Becky, did you come away with any handouts that would be useful to read?
Yeah, I can share that. Should I share it with Jason so that the whole committee has it, or just with the
Yes,
committee?
yeah, and just say that, specifically make sure you get it to the finance committee wants it, but thought the whole committee might.
Yeah, it was kind of disappointing because they had old numbers, like pre-COVID numbers, in terms of the number of school districts who were using this method versus not using it. I would have liked to have seen it given the current conditions with the construction world. The other thing that they mentioned, Jim, too, is that it requires a little bit more of a financial oversight with this method. Can you elaborate on that a little bit in terms of what that means for us?
Yeah, so that falls squarely on us. We will be, and I did spend the first half of my career in the CM world. So I do understand their budget lines. We require them to track where all of their GMP contingency goes. We have approval of any contingency funds that are coming out of there, all of their allowances, all of their holds. And up front, we are reviewing all of those to ensure, again, that, every dollar that's in there is required and it's of the right proportion for whatever scope or risk it's covering. The oversight is our change meetings, our weekly budget meetings where we are going through and, they require, they call it a multiple different names, but basically the cost report, it falls on us to be sure that we're reviewing and reporting back to this group where all the budget lines stand. In the DBB, you're paying the monthly recs, but you don't have to do that. However, you don't have line of sight to be able to approve of where those funds are going. So if they come to you with a change order saying their winter conditions are over by $50,000, you have to have that review with them, and you had no line of sight to that before that issue came up. So it's definitely a more involved financial review and process, but you have that benefit of having that line of sight to those budget lines.
Okay, let me try to summarize this as far as what we said about the contingency. Let's stick on the CMR for a moment. Okay, so the CMR determines a GMP, right? In that GMP, he is allowed to have a contingency. Let's say it's 2.5%, right? And let's say, and Becky, you're right, there'll be change orders under either one, hopefully less with the CMR.
It's a great point. Yeah.
Okay, so pretend that there's no change orders whatsoever. It was designed perfectly. And therefore, the most that the GMP could bill would be the most contractor could bill would be the GMP, which has his, so he can use his contingency, but he can't go beyond that. There's been no change orders, right? That's it. Now, if there's change orders, he can add those change orders to that GMP, correct? And go above that. He can say GMP plus that. He can use his contingency and go up to that, and then he can add the change orders to that. So that's the most he can get, right? And then on top of that, that's where we've got our construction contingency to basically pay for those change orders, correct?
So in the contract, it's going to be very specific to what they can use their GMP contingency for.
Okay, but they can use it, is my point. I agree they've got, but they can't use it. So let's say he comes in with $100 million and he's got a $2.5 million GMP contingency, right? He can spend, he can bill us $100 million if he uses the contingency correctly, right?
He can bill it if it's applicable and we approve him using those funds out of GMP contingency.
Now, let's say there's $2 million of change orders that are legitimate, things that really got changed. We changed the scope, we changed whatever. He can, it says 2 million, so he could bill us, again, if he uses his contingency correctly, $102 million, correct?
Yes, out of our construction contingency. And
So we've
again,
got construction contingency that will take care of our $2 million. So to me, and you end up at the end of the day, after the drawings are all done with 2 contingencies, not more than that, no 15%. He's got his built-in ours, and then we've got ours to take care of the change orders, correct? Is it as simple as that?
yes. Yep.
Okay. All right. And but I'm back to what Andrew said. I still don't understand why the estimator would assume that the CMR contract would cost us more, and that's the number that we have been using because we've been assuming that we're probably going to go the CMR route. So I still don't get that, but we can get back to that as these estimates come through. Last thing, and I know Mark's got to leave, is you said 3 estimates. So we already knew we were going to have 2, right? Yours and then the estimator. And then, so you're saying now the construction manager will also put together a separate estimate?
Correct. Yep. And then we'll reconcile all 3 and we'll come up with one estimate.
Okay, but he's not even hired by the time we're going to see the first 2 when schematic is done, right?
So, sorry, to clarify, when they're brought on board. So we're going to, schematic design, we still will have 2.
Okay,
It'll be ours and our streets. We go to the town vote, bring
Yeah.
them on board. So there's different phases of the detailed design. There's design development. So we'll do once those documents are complete, we'll do 3 estimates. At the complete of 60% construction documents, we'll do another estimate. That'll be 3 estimates reconciled between the 3 parties. And then 90%, another estimate with those 3 parties, and then it goes out to bid.
okay, but we go to town meeting with 2 estimates. That's what I wanted to clarify.
Thank you. Yep.
Okay, Mark, I know you've got to leave. What would you like to say something?
I'll
Ask
just,
it.
yeah, I don't have any questions. I
You
have,
probably-
I
right.
have, I have work jobs
Okay,
both ways. And I have owned jobs and been the owner both ways. In this construction environment with a project this high, we need to be nimble. We need to be flexible, and having a partner on board early is critical.
okay,
So-
so you would vote for the CMR to
Uh,
Chase?
Without a doubt.
Yeah, all right. Okay, Andrew, I don't know what else we can ask Jim. Clearly, this is Jim's world, and understands this. So I think I've got my questions answered. Do you?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think the CMR sounds like a logical direction. I just couldn't quite grasp the contingencies.
Yeah.
So, like,
And
having like an actual model of one versus the other and seeing like, because we still have that design contingency in there, right? That was like, what, 10% or whatever it was. So like, I imagine I would see some of that lowered and the GMP would be higher, and then you'd have the additional cost for the,
Yeah,
so it'll be more. I just, it seemed like we were keeping it steady and then adding to it as opposed to subtracting.
yeah. So the design contingency, by the time we get to 100% is 0.
yeah,
Yeah,
The GMP at DD will start, 12%. It can have various starting points depending. And then when we get to the bid, it can be 2%, it can be 3%. And then so that
but the
decreases.
estimator kept it, right? It was in the numbers, like it was in the totals. So it just kind of threw
Correct.
off
Yep.
the total.
Understood. Yep.
but we agree in the end of the day, we end up with two contingencies, the GMP contingency and our own construction contingency that we need to carry because of changes, et cetera.
And I
Right?
think we carry more for site, right? A site contingency.
Mm,
I think it's all,
It's all one contingency.
Oh.
The only other one is owner's soft cost contingency. Has nothing to do with construction. That's on the soft cost side that we carry.
we should talk about that one later. So I respect Mark's time here. He was supposed to have left 13 minutes ago.
Yep. I gotta run.
All right, thanks, Mark.
So Mark, don't forget, we got to get your slides for the 40R. You got to
You'll
get
have-
those.
You'll,
Okay.
you'll have them tomorrow morning.
Thank you. Okay. All right. Okay. Since we got another minute here, bye, Mark. Tell us about the soft cost contingency that I don't understand.
So that's carried within the MSBA 3011. And that covers, so outside of construction, that would cover anything additional services with Arrow Street. That's considered soft costs. Any OPM additional fees. That would also cover moving. So our moves, if one of those budget lines we need to bring some money into, that would cover FF&E and in technology as well. So that
It's a separate contingency, right?
totally separate. Yeah. So yeah, those two are the two that are carried on the bottom line of the 3011.
So we're going to negotiate new contracts with both Skanska and Arrow Street, correct?
Correct. Yep.
Okay. So we don't know what they're going to look like at this point. And
Yes. The percentages that we carried in the 3011 are about where we should land. And that's based off of a percentage of construction. We're capped by the MSBA as far as what we can do as a percentage of construction. So, I think we're at 3.5% and Arrow Street's at 9.5%. So as we get closer to that point, then yeah, so we basically will both have an amendment to our contract to carry us through to the end of the contract, but those percentages have to be agreed to, but by the district.
okay, so the percentages are based on the actual construction costs. So they would go up if there are change orders, for example.
So no. So to be clear, the percentages are carried at the time that we go to project scope and budget.
Okay, so it's based on that budget. And so at that point, they're fixed? Or not?
Correct. Yes.
All right, so it's not an hourly billing anymore. You can bill hourly against that.
Well, yeah, so that's nuance. All designer contracts are lump sum. We bill hourly, but we do a projection on what we think our hours will be. So we're still technically hourly, but it's just how it's billed is different. But yeah, we will both have a capped amount that we can bill. And if we exceed that, we have to justify why we exceeded our fee amount.
So if everything goes smoothly, totally smoothly, you're capped.
Correct. Yep. The only time we've ever had is if a project was delayed outside of the control of the construction project. And then, you know, our fees and the designer fees are extended by 4 months. You know, due to a decision on the district side. That's the only time when we would come in front of you for a change order. So.
And that happened in our public safety building. The architects did ask for more money in the end because of just what you said, the calendar. Okay. All right. Becky, do you have any questions? At this point, you're okay. And Andrew, are you okay?
Just Jim, in the in the 3011, we carried the CM at risk stuff in the GMP insurance line. So when we get there, eventually that'll get broken out into the other.
Yeah, it's just how the 3011 set up.
Yeah. Just trying
Yeah.
to.
Because because how we got the estimates, it was just that straight 5%,
Yeah.
not broken out into everything. So that's just how it was carried. Good picking that up though.
He's good. He's good.
Can't get by anything by Andrew.
Don't mess with me in Excel.
That's right. Don't you forget that.
That's right.
Okay. Anything else, Jim, you want us to know before we see you next week?
That's all.
Okay. And you agree that we're going to have an official vote on the contract type? Is that part of the agenda?
Yes. Yep. Yeah. I just shot those agenda items over. So I do think they'll look from some, just from, Jason just said, have you had the discussion with finance subcommittee yet? And I said, we're having it today. So they probably will look to this group just for some input, I would assume.
Well, that's
I
what,
think it would be helpful for me to see like a 3011 format, like one versus the other. Like
Okay.
if there are nuances in terms of, you know, okay, we carry a lower owner's contingency or construction contingency, you're showing the GMP contingency in there, like, you know, because we're still carrying the $10 million for, or no, $13 million for design and pricing contingency in there. Like, I would assume that yeah, right, because that's going to eventually disappear when we get to the GMP bid.
Yeah. So the design and pricing contingency will stay in there. Because that goes through detailed design. So really what it would be is taking out that 5% and increasing the construction contingency would be the.
But I would imagine, because it would be, okay, because that would be in between, when we finish our current design right now, right? After
Yep.
town meeting, then we get into detailed design. Okay.
So we're carrying that through. Yeah.
so in the end, what do you think the town's construction contingency would be as a percent?
For design bid build or for CMR, I think we're carrying
Carrying 2.5, I think, right now, Kathy.
2.5 is about where you want to be.
And then we're carrying a 1.5 owner's contingency.
That's what I'm asking about, the owner's contingency. I'm not talking about the CMR, the construction manager's own contingency, his GMP. I know what the town needs to carry on top of the budget for change orders.
So a new build, 2.5%, I think. And as we get closer to project scope and budget is where when we lock everything in, we'll lock those percentages in. But 2.5%, that was over similar projects, new projects that we looked at with some historical data. So I think 2.5% is where you want to be. Now, if this was an ad reno, we'd be carrying 5%, just to give some perspective.
Kathy, I think between the GMP contingency, because Jimmy said that was about 2.5, right? Or something like that.
Yeah.
I think I'm figuring about half of what the increased cost was, right? 5 million, so 2.5 for that. 2.5 million. So between the GMP contingency, our construction contingency, owner's contingency, and our design contingency, it's about 20 million on a $113 million project.
Okay, but the design contingency goes away, Andrew. I'm talking about in the end of the day, when the documents are all done, we've gotten everything squared away as far as what the design looks like. What do we end up with as an owner's contingency? And it sounds like it's 2.5% on a new build.
That's the construction. The owner's is 1.5.
I'm asking about owners. The owner's contingency that basically pays for change orders. Is that 2.5%?
Use the construction contingency to pay for change orders as well. It's just the GMP one is separate.
Okay.
So eventually they'll be, right now we're carrying 4 contingencies.
We're talking.
Design will go away, right? So
Yep.
we'll carry the GMP, which won't be for change orders. Then we'll have the construction and the owners. The owners is more soft costs, correct me if I'm wrong, Jim. And the
Correct.
construction would be more for like construction change orders.
Okay.
Correct.
Well, I just want to make sure we got the lingo right, okay? So to me, the construction contingency is an owner's contingency also. It's one of the two,
Yes.
okay?
Yeah,
But I'm happy to call that construction and then so I just want to call it construction contingency, soft cost contingency. To me, those two together are the owner's contingencies, right?
Yep.
Then you've got what the construction manager has built into his GMP. So to me, those are the three, right?
Mhm.
Okay.
correct.
I
Yep.
think the combination of the soft cost contingency and the construction contingency is 2.5, or is it more?
2.5 in here.
Do you agree,
Yep.
Jim?
Yes,
Jim, this is your expertise. Okay, so
yes, yeah, the
Okay,
2.5%.
the GMP might also in his, just coincidentally, have a 2.5 in his. That may be a typical his too.
Yeah, I mean, that can vary as we go, but, and I can look back to see on a couple other projects where we landed, but you know, 2%, but yeah, I'll get some more data on that, but
So I won't say this at the meeting next week, because I want to be careful of what I say, but the reason I really want the CMR is because of the open book, because I am used to some dirty tricks in the other side as far as what people can do when they realize they made a mistake, and have to try to make up for it someplace, and you have no idea what they did, what shortcut they took, etc. You just don't know. So that's why I like it. I also like the fact that when you read some of the articles, they say that the world is gravitating towards CMR and the more ethical construction managers are on the CMR side, that they really do seem to be gravitating toward. That's what they want to do, is the CMR version of it. And I guess because they've got so much involvement all the way through.
yeah, and I mean, again, not to toot my own horn, but having been on the CM side for that first half of my career, I have a very good understanding of where that money is and where to ferret it out at. You know, so just having that base level knowledge is important because, you know, there can be some smoke and mirrors. But yeah, but I definitely think the CM at risk, I'll put it simply, CM at risk is more of a partner that throughout the project. It's less of an adversarial relationship than a GC. That's the simplest way to put it.
I just had a client who was fairly old by the time I did his work, and his father was a construction guy, and he told me all of these tales about what his father used to do. And it was quite eye-opening. So I've never forgotten those stories. That's why I much rather go on what I call the cost plus, so that no one has to worry about fixing a problem they didn't see and trying to bury it so their profit is what they thought was going to be. So, okay. All right.
Yep.
So I think we're there, Jim. It sounds like our
Okay.
three will recommend CMR on next Thursday.
Okay.
All right, Becky, you're okay? And I don't know, Brian, I assume you're there?
I am.
Okay. Brian, I forgot it, your picture wasn't here, so I kind of forgot you were over there. Are you okay with everything we talked about?
Yeah, no, good conversation.
All right, so Andrew, you want to make a motion?
Motion to adjourn.
And I'll second, because it's just you and I. So Andrew
Aye.
and Cook is I. So thank everybody, Jim, Becky, and Brian.
Thank you. Have a good afternoon.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye-bye.